At a friend's wedding, she leaned close and whispered, "Don't start dreaming. Marriage is for men who earn it." I gave a polite smile. But when the bride threw the bouquet, what followed left her stunned. I've always believed that people reveal their true selves. You just have to pay attention. For 2 years, I was in a relationship with a woman named Claire. On the surface, everything seemed fine. We shared a home that I own, enjoyed an active social circle, and appeared to be a thriving couple. I manage a risk assessment company, a technical way of saying I spend my days evaluating worst-case outcomes and devising backup plans. It's a career that has honed my ability to spot flaws in a structure before it collapses entirely. Claire came from a family obsessed with appearances above all else. They had wealth, but it was the kind that prioritized status over stability. They never accepted me. I was self-made, not part of their elite circle. They viewed my practicality as a lack of drive and my reserved confidence as a flaw. Claire, I believed, was different. I thought she valued me for who I truly was. But over the past year, I began to notice her adopting her family's patronizing attitude. Subtle remarks, masked as humor, about my wardrobe, my vehicle, my friends. I was paying attention and I didn't like what I heard. The relationship was on thin ice. I wasn't a pushover and I wasn't going to bankroll a lifestyle for someone who disrespected me. We had a clear agreement. I owned the house, but she paid a fixed amount for utilities each month from her marketing job. It was a partnership, or so I thought. I had decided in private that if things didn't change, I would end it. I was just waiting for one final, irrefutable piece of evidence. That evidence came yesterday at our friend's wedding. My closest friend, David, was marrying his longtime partner, Maria. It was a stunning ceremony, the kind that fills you with optimism about the world. Claire was on her best behavior, playing the role of the ideal, supportive partner. But during the reception, as we sat at our table watching the newlyweds share their first dance, her facade slipped. She'd had a few glasses of champagne, and her disdain was rising to the surface. She leaned toward me, a smug grin on her face, and gestured toward David and Maria on the dance floor. "Don't get any wild ideas," she murmured, her tone dripping with venomous sweetness. "Marriage is for men who are worthy of it." The music was loud, but her words sliced through it like a blade. It wasn't a jest. It was a judgment, a declaration of my inadequacy, delivered with a smile. She was telling me in no uncertain terms that I was beneath her, a temporary convenience, not a man she'd ever deemed suitable for marriage. I didn't react. I didn't get upset. My mind, trained to anticipate the worst, simply processed the information she'd provided. This was the fracture in the foundation. This was the breaking point, and my contingency plan snapped into action immediately. I looked at her, offered a calm, pleasant smile, and said, "Of course not." She squeezed my hand, believing she'd put me in my place. She had no clue what she'd just set in motion. She thought she held all the power, all the control. She didn't realize I was about to walk away, exit the game, and then torch the entire playing field. The rest of the reception passed in a haze. I was the model boyfriend. I laughed, I mingled, I even danced with her. But all the while, my mind was calculating, assembling a strategy with cold, precise logic. The final act of the evening was the bouquet toss, and I decided right then and there that it would be the grand finale of our relationship. Update 1. My plan required a few trusted allies and a touch of fortune. The first person I approached was the bride, Maria. I caught her for a moment while Claire was in the restroom. Maria has known me for years. She's perceptive, and she's never been Claire's biggest supporter. "Maria," I said, my voice hushed and urgent, "I need a massive favor. It's about the bouquet toss. And it's about me and Claire." She looked at me, her eyes filled with worry. "What's wrong?" "She just told me that marriage is for men who are worthy and that I shouldn't dare think about it," I said bluntly. Maria's expression shifted from concern to fury in an instant. "She didn't say that." "At my wedding," she shook her head. "That's it, I'm done with her. What do you need?" The plan was bold. I told her that instead of tossing the bouquet to the crowd, I needed her to do something very specific. I needed her to create a moment. She listened. A slow, mischievous grin spread across her face. "Oh, this is going to be so much better than just tossing it," she said. Next, I found my sister, Laura. Laura is a powerhouse. She's an attorney, and she has a knack for theatrics. She was also my designated escape driver. I handed her my car keys and a set of instructions. While the bouquet toss was happening, she was to go to my house, let herself in with the spare key I'd given her, and pack an overnight bag for me. She was also to retrieve a small, critical box from the back of my closet. The final piece was the DJ. I slipped him a $100 bill and gave him a very specific musical signal. He was a professional and just gave me a nod and a wink. As the time for the bouquet toss neared, I could see Claire getting excited. She and her single friends were positioning themselves at the front of the crowd, laughing and jostling each other like schoolgirls. This was her domain, a world of shallow competitions and public affirmation. The DJ called all the single women to the dance floor. Maria stood on a small platform, her back to the crowd, holding the bouquet. The traditional countdown began, but on one she didn't throw it. She turned around. She scanned the crowd, her eyes gliding over Claire without a hint of acknowledgement. Then her face brightened. She stepped off the platform and down the small set of stairs directly into the crowd. The women parted for her like a sea. She walked straight up to a woman standing near the back. A woman named Hannah. Hannah was a friend from my college days, a kind, smart, and beautiful person who I had reconnected with a few months ago after she returned to the city. We were just friends, but there was an effortless connection between us that had always existed. She was also one of the few people I had invited to the wedding from my side. Maria handed the bouquet directly to Hannah. The crowd was puzzled, murmuring. Claire was standing at the front, her face frozen in disbelief. She had been robbed of her moment. And then the DJ played my signal. The lively dance music stopped, and a slow, beautiful instrumental piece began to play. All the lights in the room dimmed except for a single spotlight, and that spotlight swung from the stage and landed directly on me. I started walking. I moved past the tables, past the confused guests, and onto the dance floor. I walked past Claire, who was staring at me with her mouth agape. I didn't even glance at her. I walked straight to Hannah, who was holding the bouquet and looking completely baffled. I took her free hand. My sister Laura appeared at my side as if by magic. She handed me the small box from my closet. I turned to Hannah. In front of everyone, I dropped to one knee. I opened the box. Inside was a simple, elegant diamond ring. It was my grandmother's ring. "Hannah," I said, my voice clear and steady, amplified by the microphone the DJ had discreetly handed me. "I came here tonight and saw what a true partnership looks like. It's about love and respect, and knowing the other person deserves the best. Claire just reminded me that marriage is for men who are worthy. And I've realized I also want a partner who is worthy of the best. I know this is wild, but I'd rather take a bold chance on a future with someone as incredible as you than spend another day in a relationship where I'm not valued." I paused. "Will you marry me?" The entire room was silent. You could have heard a whisper. Hannah was in shock, her eyes wide. Claire looked like she had been petrified. Hannah looked at me, at the ring, at Maria, who was giving her an enthusiastic thumbs up, and then back at me. A slow smile spread across her face. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." The room erupted. Update 2. The wedding reception descended into the most vibrant, beautiful chaos I have ever seen. As I slid the ring onto Hannah's finger, our friends exploded with cheers. David and Maria rushed over to embrace us. My family was weeping with joy. Claire, however, was not celebrating. She let out a sound that I can only describe as a wounded creature. She started shouting right there in the middle of the dance floor. She was yelling at me, at Hannah, at Maria. She called me a villain, a deceiver, a betrayer. Her friends tried to rally around her, but the tide of public sentiment had turned so swiftly and completely against her that they were left stranded. Most of the guests were either congratulating us or staring at Claire's meltdown with a mix of pity and revulsion. David, the groom, finally stepped in. He calmly approached Claire and told her it was time to leave. Her own father, a man who had always looked down on me, just stood there, speechless, watching his daughter unravel. She was eventually escorted out of the reception, still shouting about how this was all a scheme. And she was right. It was a scheme, a brilliant, intricate, and perfectly executed scheme. Hannah, of course, had been in on the whole thing. The reconnection a few months ago wasn't by chance. After months of Claire's growing disrespect, I had reached out to Hannah, my old friend, and confided in her. The proposal wasn't a spontaneous, reckless act. It was a meticulously planned exit strategy. Hannah, who had been through a bad breakup of her own, agreed to help me. She thought Claire's behavior was deplorable and was more than happy to play the role of my surprise fiancé. The ring was my grandmother's, but the proposal was our performance. After Claire was gone, the party surged into full swing. It was no longer just David and Maria's wedding reception. It was a joint engagement celebration. The joy in that room was genuine and overwhelming. My sister Laura had executed her role perfectly. While the drama was unfolding, she had gone to my house. She didn't just pack me an overnight bag. She had hired a 24-hour moving crew that she had on standby. In the 2 hours we were at the reception, they had cleared every single one of Claire's possessions from my house. Every piece of clothing, every shoe, every book, every piece of furniture she had brought into the house was packed and moved to a storage unit. When I finally left the reception with Hannah, my new fiancée, we didn't go back to my house. I had reserved the honeymoon suite at the hotel where the wedding was held. My overnight bag was waiting for us. The next morning, I finally turned my phone back on. It was a battlefield. Dozens of missed calls from Claire and her parents. A flood of texts that ranged from threatening to begging. I ignored them all. Instead, I sent her a single final text message. Claire, you were right. Marriage is for men who are worthy. And a man who is worthy wouldn't stay with a woman who doesn't respect him. You are free to find a man you deem worthy. Your belongings are in storage unit 42 at 123 Storage Way. The code is 1234. The first month is paid for. This is my final communication with you. Then I blocked her number and the numbers of her entire family. Hannah and I spent the rest of the day laughing about the sheer madness of it all. We ordered room service, sipped champagne, and planned our next steps. The fake engagement had felt surprisingly authentic. We decided right then and there to see where this wild story might actually lead us. Final update. The weeks following the wedding proposal were a masterclass in damage control, mostly on Claire's part. She and her family tried to craft a narrative that I was an unstable, manipulative fiend who had orchestrated the entire event to humiliate her. They hired a lawyer and sent me a threatening letter demanding financial compensation for emotional distress and for her share of the assets from our long-term partnership. My sister, who, as I mentioned, is an attorney, had a field day with their letter. She sent back a response that was both legally crushing and a masterpiece. It included a detailed breakdown of Claire's minimal financial contributions to our household, a copy of the deed to my house, in my name only, purchased before I met her, and a compilation of statements from wedding guests who'd overheard her condescending remarks throughout the night. The letter concluded by stating that if they chose to pursue legal action, I would be filing a countersuit for defamation, and for the repayment of several large personal expenses she had charged to my credit card over the past year. They went quiet after that. The threat of having their own finances and Claire's behavior examined in a courtroom was enough to make them retreat. The social fallout was even more gratifying. The story of the proposal became legendary. David and Maria, my loyal friends, made sure the true version of events was the one that spread. They told everyone about Claire's comment, about her disrespect, and about how I had simply taken her at her word. Claire, who had always been so preoccupied with her social status, was now an outcast. She was the woman who had been so arrogant that her boyfriend proposed to another woman in front of her. She eventually had to move back in with her parents. Her marketing job, which was at a firm where social connections are everything, became unsustainable. She resigned a few weeks after the wedding, unable to face the whispers and the pitying glances. As for me and Hannah, the fake engagement turned into a real relationship faster than either of us could have anticipated. The adrenaline and sheer absurdity of that night forged a connection between us that was stronger than any relationship I had ever known. We spent the next few months getting to know each other again, not as old college friends, but as two people who had found each other in the most unconventional way possible. We got married 6 months ago. It was a small, serene ceremony on a beach with just our closest friends and family. David and Maria were our witnesses. There was no drama, no spectacle, just a genuine, honest commitment between two people who respect and admire each other. I learned a profound lesson from all of this. When people show you who they are, don't try to convince yourself they're someone else. Don't make excuses for them, just listen. Claire told me I didn't deserve to be married to her, and I finally realized she was absolutely right. I deserved so much better, and in the end, that's exactly what I got. She wanted to be the final word on my worth. Instead, she just became the opening line in a far better story.